Wiki. Here we are, back again with some Living Life in the Flow Zone podcast action. Here with my man Aaron Lux, human being human and being all sort of types of stuff. How you doing, my man?
Living life one day at a time.
One day at a time, one moment at a time, right?
Mm.
And how's the time been of late?
You know, everything all at once, intense, mellow, chill, stressful. You know how it goes, man.
Equilibrium, huh?
Very extreme equilibrium. Very uneven equal. A very odd equilibrium.
So what's been some cool stuff that you've been up to this year?
Well, I was just in India studying with some Tibetan Tantra monks up in the Himalayan foothills with a very dear girlfriend of mine.
Which ones? There's plenty of Himalayan foothills, I imagine.
So she promised that I wouldn't specifically say the exact location, and I like to keep my word, but I'll say it was in Jammu, Kashmir area.
In the vicinity.
So basically the nearest national airport would be in Ladakh.
Cool.
Which is central Kashmir.
So if you're interested, guys, jump on Google and figure it out.
You will not find the town. The town, the monks there have been studying since basically pre-Buddha time, so pre-Siddhartha, and it's direct lineage, sort of Naga. Naga means serpent, and the original term comes from basically Tibetan Tantra. So basically, it was a combination of Rinpoche, I'm saying that right, Rinpoche, basically kind of got together with some Tibetan monks, and they sort of met with some Indian sort of mystical people, and they started Tantra, and it's been going on uninterrupted there for over 1,000 years now. So
in the same spot?
Yeah. And
you can't share the location.
No, she made me promise to not not publicly say where we were. So
that's fine. You can't share the location, but can you share the knowledge of the wisdom that you picked up?
Well, it's sort of difficult to translate into words. I try to do it with my poetry a little bit, but it's difficult. The 2 weeks before I was there, I was meeting with the Dalai Lama in Dharamsala. And I was there for one of his teachings. He's getting old. He's going to be passing away pretty soon. And actually, China recently basically detained the Lama in charge of finding the 15th Dalai Lama. So the 14th Dalai Lama, which is the Dalai Lama that we all know, maybe the last one. So I found it important to be there. And two of the things I learned while I was there that sort of came to me was, one, we're never going to be happy if we're always either dwelling in the past or thinking about the future. We're only really going to be happy right now, really. And the second thing that I learned was that all suffering that we have and that we hold, all grief, all suffering, comes from the idea of an attachment to the self. And I don't mean like just attachment to like you, or attachment to me, like, oh, me and myself. I mean attachment to the idea of a self. Like, oh, that person's suffering, or those people are suffering, or this place is suffering, or people in here, this place are suffering. It's just even the idea of self. So if we can liberate ourselves from that idea of self, then I think that we'll alleviate sort of the suffering that we hold. So those are basically the two things I learned from there.
That was from the Dalai Lama or from the Tantra teachers?
That was the Dalai Lama. And so before I was in Kashmir with the Tantric Tibetan monks, I was at the Dalai Lama's monastery in McLeod Ganj, which is just above the foothills of Dharamsala. And the week before that, I was in Madagascar for an international conference on sustainable development and human equity. And there I learned that most of the leaders of our world are really not going to help fix this world. People from the poorest person on the street to the richest president of countries. You know, there's this inherent feeling of a very closed worldview in a way. People are really into instant gratification and sort of what can they get and have now. And it's the same basic sort of desires and wants across all of humanity. So that was difficult, but I don't know. I think the powers of good will eventually succeed.
Got the hope.
So that's what I learned about it. Yeah. Now I'm back in America. I just arrived. I'm here for the total solar eclipse.
And tell us a little bit about how you started writing poetry. Poetry journey.
Well, to be honest, I usually refuse to do interviews.
Mm-hmm.
I get asked actually fairly frequently, and I don't really like to tell the story.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, I was in a really dark time in my life, and I basically did some things that I thought were going to liberate myself from my physical body on planet Earth. And I had this sort of message from God, I guess you could say, that basically told me that I had things I had to do here and that I wasn't allowed to leave yet, and that I had a purpose to fulfill. So I sort of slapped myself around and got myself together really quickly in the situation I was in, and took some pretty drastic measures in order to reverse what I thought was an irreversible path of liberation of body, and started writing basically then. And my original work, this is about a decade ago, was super dark and depressing, and I never thought anybody was gonna like read it or see it even, you know. Definitely didn't think about publishing whatsoever. But at the time I was in Southeast Asia, in this small town off the Mekong River, and there was a fair bit of backpackers around. So I started reading things I had written, little proses and stanzas, and people were really impressed with it. And actually, one of the best compliments I would get at the time, I thought it was an insult, but one of the best compliments I would get at the time was, "Hey, who wrote that? You know, who wrote what you just read?" And I said, "Oh, I wrote it." I said, "Yeah, I wrote it." And they would say, "Oh, well, you don't look like you could write that, or you would write that." And at first, I was insulted, but then I realized that, you know, sometimes we create work that actually transcends us and becomes bigger than us. And so what I realized is these people were not insulting me. You know, we're not supposed to take anything personal anyways. That's one of the 4 agreements. And what I realized is these people were not insulting me. They were actually complimenting the work that was being created through me. So after a few years of writing, I realized that because of this vision I had had when I was close to death and whatnot, and this body of work I created, that I needed to put it out there to the world. And, you know, I didn't want to promote it or advertise it. I mean, even to this day, I don't advertise. I don't do, I try not to do a lot of interviews. I don't have a publicist. anything like that. I've turned down book tours multiple times. But I felt like I had a responsibility to at least put it out there. And then if people found it or wanted to read my work, that was up to them. But I personally couldn't keep it all for myself. I thought it was selfish and very egotistical and sort of wrong, because I was creating this massive body of work, and to just keep it all was sort of like me just really, it would just be a travesty, I feel like, to the general, human consciousness that we have, to sort of hide that work,
I just imagine it like Gollum with his little ring.
I'm not, I don't know. The Gollum was
from the Lord of the Rings.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I actually haven't seen those films. Elijah Wood is someone who I've connected with a few times, but when I met him, I didn't even know he was an actor. He had to tell me, because I was asking him why, we were like smoking a cigarette at a party, and I was like, yo, man, why does everyone keep staring at you? And he's like, oh, because I was just in these films and they were kind of big, and I'm like, oh, what films? And so we got to talking. That's how I met him, actually. But I hadn't seen the film, so I didn't know the reference of this.
So the ring is like a magical ring. And I've only seen, I think, one or two of the movies because it's been so long. And yeah, I've read the book twice, or all the books. So it's a really good story. I don't know if you're into writing, but the writer of the books is a really good writer, and fully immersive in a world if you're into fantasy or fiction at all. So definitely,
they're massive too. They're massive tomes of literature, though, right?
Yeah, they're huge, big.
How many pages are the books?
I think all up the trilogy. It's a 3-book series, and and The Hobbit as well, which I read. All up, it's probably about 1,200 pages or so. With really
1,200 pages for the whole trilogy.
Yeah.
I mean, my first trilogy was 2,500 pages.
Yeah.
So that doesn't seem right. Maybe.
The writing's very little. In the edition that I read, it was a massive book with really thin paper and really good writing. So.
All right, that sounds fair enough. Yeah. Yeah. So I didn't want to be. I guess that's sort of the same idea. It's if you have something powerful or you have something potent, I feel like you at least need to offer it. You at least need to offer to share it. At the same time, you don't want to sort of force it upon people or tell them, hey, you've got to read this, or you've got to take this ring, or you've got to do these things. So, I saw my primary responsibility is just putting it out there, and then as an offering, and if people wanted it, they could read it. So I got to talking with some printing houses, and they said, are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Mm-hmm. And I got talking to some printing houses, and I said, I have this poetry, I'd like to publish it. And they said, okay, well, how many pages is it? And I said, well, it's about 2,500 pages. And they said that there's no printing house in the entire world that can print a book that big. So I said, okay, well, I don't really want to deal with this. I just want to put it out there and then be done with it. I don't ever want to write again. And I just need to put this out there because, it's for the world, and, I have a mission to do this. And then I thought I was gonna be able to wash my hands of it. But they said they couldn't print a book 2,500 pages. So I said, well, what's the biggest book you can print? And they said, well, the biggest book we can print is about 850 pages. So I did the math, and I saw that I could divide the 2,500 pages into a trilogy, and that's how the first trilogy was born. I saw, okay, I can do about 850 pages per book, and that'll equal roughly 2,500 pages. So I put out the first book as a trilogy, and I didn't know what to call it, because there's so much information in there. It's ridiculous, It's just like every kind of thing. And it's basically the journey of a human experience, good stuff, bad stuff, smart stuff, stupid stuff, spiritual stuff, sacrilegious stuff, just, every sort of thing, simple, complicated. And I'm like, what do I call this? You know, what do you call a body of work that's 2,500 pages that talks about everything that exists in the world? You know, so I just, you know, I was like, well, it's poetry, so I'll just call it the Poetry Trilogy. Sounds fairly straightforward. So I did some research, and there was, yeah, it is what it is, and there was no other poetry trilogy in existence. So I put it out, and obviously I couldn't put it all at once because it was a trilogy, so I had to put out one book at a time. So I put the first book out, and it was my first book, and nobody bought it. I mean, it was like,
and it cost you a whole bunch to print it.
No, I had a deal worked out. I think I sold like 10 books or something initially, like, you know.
Wow.
And I had to pay. I was in Venice, Italy, when I first put it out, and I had to pay like I don't want to say a bad graphic designer because he might get upset, but I had to pay a not.
One sec. I'm just gonna relocate.
All right. Jungle vibe right there. You make my little plant here, my little baby plant. And like,
got that
just step into the jungle.
Yeah, so you called it the trilogy, the poetry trilogy. You didn't sell a book, 10 copies.
Nobody would buy it. I had to pay, you know, I don't want to say, like I said, I don't want to say a bad graphic designer, but I had to pay this like not so amazing graphic designer in Italy. I was living in Venice, Italy at the time. I had to pay this really not amazing graphic designer in Venice, Italy, like 100 euros to do my cover. And it was just ridiculous. And I put it out there and no one bought it. And I was super frustrated. And I was like, I did this amazing body of work. Nobody cares.
What year was this?
I don't know, maybe 2014, 2013 or 14. That was my first book. And, you know, my friends weren't being supportive. It was a little ridiculous. And, you know, but I said, oh, well, whatever, you know, I've just got 2 more books I've got to put out. I only put out 1 book of the trilogy, so I just got to power through these next 2 books. Like, you know, and it was really miserable. I don't know if you've ever had the experience of creating some artistic thing that you really love and you want to share, and people just don't even look at it. But, you know, that's life. So, and again, you know, my concern wasn't necessarily people reading it. My concern was putting it out there, and if people wanted to check it out, that's up to them. So then I sort of put out volume 2, and to my surprise, it entered like the top 20 in bestsellers on Amazon. I was in the top 20 of new releases or whatnot. And I was like, well, that's interesting. You know, all right, people are into it. And, you know, I had a couple friends back in Hollywood and in different places in the world sort of start to share a little bit, and just, you know, word of mouth only, you know, no formal campaigns, no paid campaigns, nothing like that. You know, but just tell friends of friends, hey, you know, check out this book. And, you know, as the sales sort of increased on volume 1, it sort of drew up interest in volume 2. And then volume 3 came out about, you know, I was trying to put one out every basically 4 months or 6 months or something. The idea was just to put, you know, the whole trilogy out within 1 year and be done with it. And, you know, it was the largest, you know, I was just like, okay, this is the largest collection of poetry ever published in a single work by a single poet ever, living or dead. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to put these out there and be done with it. And, well, it's actually debatable because Shakespeare, technically some people consider Shakespeare a poet, right? Even though technically he was a playwright. So it's kind of a gray area because his volumes of work were extremely massive. But also his volumes of work were released individually. It wasn't like a one single work. So even if you compare the work to works by Shakespeare, the works that I've put out as, you know, as a poetry trilogy, as a collection was bigger. And as far as more poems, there's Emily Dickinson, who wrote approximately 2,000 poems, which is technically more, but they weren't published while she was alive. So, and they weren't publishing a single, like she didn't publish a single body of work. But the point being, it was a massive volume. And so by the second one, people were kind of like, well, who is this guy? And I had, people hating on it and people loving it and sort of, mixed reactions. I had one guy, a literary professor. I'll always remember this guy. He said, oh, I'm a literary professor at, whatever. I think he went to Harvard or Princeton or one of those East Coast Ivy League schools, and I was a professor there. He's like, I've been teaching poetry for 20 years and you, sir, are not a poet, And then, I would get a message like that on a message board, but then right next to that message, I would get a woman saying, hey, your writing saved my life. You helped me, battle through stage 4 cancer,
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, this is quite the mix of emotions here, So that was volume 2. And then I came out with volume 3. And within 1 week, it was the best selling poetry book in the world.
Wow.
And yeah, it was, really, really incredible. Actually, I was really, really surprised. Part of me was extremely surprised and, excited and happy. And then part of me wasn't excited at all and wasn't surprised and wasn't happy, because I realized that it was like my work wasn't yet finished. Like it had just begun. It's sort of like in martial arts. When you study martial arts, I don't know if you study martial arts?
Yeah, I practice Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay. So in martial arts, I've studied a few different things as well.
I practice a bit of Xingyi and Bagua as well, a bit of Kung Fu.
So in any martial art where there's a belt ranking system, you go through your belts, you go white belt, blue belt, purple belt, brown belt. And when you get to black belt, that's what a lot of non-martial artists don't understand. When you get to black belt is when your journey actually begins.
That's when the game begins.
Yeah. Now, people that don't study martial arts don't understand that. They think that the black belt is the highest. You get the black belt, that's the goal. You've reached the end of the rainbow. It's just you, the leprechaun, and the pot of gold. But in actuality, martial artists will, really, martial artists who are in the life path of martial arts will tell you that that's just the beginning. So it was very similar to the books, where when I put out volume 3 of the poetry trilogy, some people would have said, oh, well, that's his complete body of work. He's done it. He's successful. He has a #1 book. He has a best-selling book. He's completed the trilogy. He wrote the largest collection of poetry ever written. He's done. But for me, I realized that was actually just the beginning, that I was only now allowed to even call myself a writer. I can only now call myself a poet. So then I went on to, and from there it just snowballed. And then, I haven't had a non-best-selling book since then. And there's another poet, there's a couple of poets I want to shout out, but mainly there's a poet called R.M. Drake. His name's Robert R.M. Drake. And his book, the way I met him is his book and my book were basically jockeying between #1 and #2 on Amazon for the best-selling poetry books. And I was like, who the heck is this R.M. Drake guy? He's got this like cartoon character on his book cover. So I looked him up. He's got like, almost 2 million followers on social media. So I reached out to him and we got to talking, and he's actually one of my biggest readers now. He reads all my books, really loves my work, is hugely supportive of me. And it was when I sort of contacted him, when we had those #1 and 2 books, and he got back to me and he asked me to like look him up. Basically, I looked him up and I saw, and this is when I realized that I had entered another level. So at that point, I focused more time on writing, and I was no longer, suicidal or whatever anymore. I was still, still have my depression issues, but was much more level-headed. So my writings began to be much more rounded. And, for example, in the poetry trilogy, in the initial trilogy, I divided up into basically what I call the 7 pillars of creation. So there was life. There was life. I don't know if I remember the pillars right now. It's like God, life, death, love, hate, illuminations, and death. And that was what I saw as like the 7 pillars of creation, the journey of humanity, you know, through our existence. And sort of in the books that followed, I didn't have such a negative. I didn't have a death pillar. I didn't have a hate pillar. You know, I was more balanced. So then I proceeded to put out several trilogies over the past few years. I did one called the Holy Trilogy, which volume 2 will be my next book, and that's not coming out till 8/8/18. And then I started another trilogy called the Double H Trilogy, which people are constantly trying to interpret what the double H means, which I just leave it open to interpretation. I have my own meaning, but you know, I like hearing people's sort of interpretations of it. And that trilogy was sort of about my life in Hollywood and my life amongst, you know, a lot of my celebrity friends, and sort of the exhilarating feeling of having a big ego, and at the same time that sort of loneliness that exists in the inside when all around you seems so spectacular. It's really difficult to describe, but I think it's done really well in the book. That's some people consider it their favorite trilogy of mine. So yeah, and then recently, my most recent book, actually, let me see, this one, which just came out. I think this one came out 2 weeks ago. And this is obviously, it's got the 7. You like the back? This has got the little eclipse on the back.
There we go.
You like that?
There we go.
It's not bad. And what's interesting about this, so for example, this is 7/7/7. This came out. I wasn't going to put another book out this year because I just put one out on 5/5/17, which was volume 2 of the HH trilogy, and that was a #1 bestseller. And I wasn't really trying to put out another book, you know, 2 months later. You know, it's really, I'm not trying to put out too many books, but you know, I felt compelled to do so. I mean, 7/7/17 is a big number. I could go off on it forever. I mean, there's a whole chapter in this book about the number 7, but I mean, it's the year 5777 on the Hebrew calendar, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And then I put the eclipse on the back because we have obviously a solar eclipse coming up. And what's interesting about this, so this cover art here was done by a really cool artist named Jake Amison out of Colorado. I mean, this is a guy who he sells his artwork for thousands of dollars a piece. I mean, anything he paints, people buy. And he's someone who probably, when my first book came out, would have never done my cover for anything, you know?
It kind of looks like you upgraded the graphic designer on that one. I was about to say.
Yeah, this is actually hand painted. It looks digital, but the image is actually a hand painted image. It's acrylic on canvas initially. So you know, it's interesting to think, you know, my first book came out, I had to pay like a not amazing graphic designer $100 to do like a really generic cover. I mean, if you look me up online, if you look me up online and you look up, what was the name? The Poetry Trilogy. If you look up Aaron Lux, the Poetry Trilogy Volume 1, the cover is just like really something you could make in like 10 minutes. And then obviously like this cover, I mean, this is a hand painted thing that, you know,
not thousands of
really, really hard to make. Yeah. So, you know, and now I have really well-known artists from all over the world that step up and do my covers, you know, just to be a part of it, you know, just to do it for free. You know, I mean, I think one of the reasons is because, you know, they like getting their work out there. Another reason is because they respect poetry as an art form. And I think another reason they don't expect money in return is because every dollar I make from these books, I donate to different charities. So every book I designate a different charity for that book to donate the proceeds to. So, for example, the last book went to a local charity that rescues wild animals from basically captivity. And then the book before that went to No Means No, which is a big campaign to stop sexual violence internationally all over the world. They focus a lot on Africa, but different places. So you know, I think that artists appreciate that as well. So that's another reason why they do the covers complimentary. but also because, poets and painters have historically had a symbiotic relationship throughout history. I mean, there's a piece in the book before this one in the H.H. Trilogy Volume 2 that talks about, the relationship between Pablo Picasso and Paul Éluard, who was, Pablo Picasso was obviously a painter. Paul Éluard was a poet, and they had a very close relationship. And sort of talks about that sort of that way that the two play off each other, because it's basically poets look at painters and say, wow, that's incredible, you're able to paint something that I could never describe in a million words.
Right.
I mean, that's what they get, the saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words or whatnot. And then painters will look at poets and say, wow, you're able to describe in words what I could never write. Yeah, what I can never paint. So there's a symbiotic relationship, and they both complement each other. So I think that, a lot of painters read my work and really appreciate it. I actually thought about putting out a book about all the pieces I've written at different museums all over the world, but I probably won't, because it's just my next 3 books are already written. Volume 2 and 3 of the Holy Trilogy, as well as Volume 3 of the Double H Trilogy, are all already written. But I'm taking a year off. Got a lot of things to do this year. I've put out enough books for right now.
And what's your process like? You just write every day, or like inspiration hits you?
Okay, so this
deadline, how's that all work?
This is actually really important. This is actually a really important question that you asked, because it's something that a lot of writers, it's a big topic of conversation amongst writers and aspiring writers, and it's a question I get asked a lot: is how do you write? Like people say all the time, almost every day, someone gets a hold of me and says, hey, I want to publish a book, I want to be a writer, how do I do it? And there's two basic schools of thought on it. And the one is, you have to sit down in the same place every day with your cup of coffee or your mate and your pen and your pad of paper, and force yourself to write every day. If you don't want to write, you start scribbling and doodling, and then you start writing the words, and you just make yourself write. And I'm not making this up. This is the official, quote unquote, official literary method. And then there's another school of thought that says that you should never do that, and you should let your writing or whatever art be completely free and natural. So if you don't want to write, don't write. And if you do want to write, do. And I sort of go from the second school of thought, because any sort of artistic expression we have often is our one gesture of liberation that exists for us in an oppressed world. And that's often why a lot of the best work, whether it's painting or it's poetry or it's music, comes from the places of the most oppression, from people that really feel the most oppressed, because it's their one way that they're able to just express everything without any restrictions. When I'm writing a poem, it's pure liberation. It's pure freedom. There is nothing stopping me. And often I've written I have some pretty hardcore stuff in some of my books, like really, like, what the heck, really? But, and it's something I've thought about, but we have to be careful not to censor ourselves, especially as artists. We have a responsibility to the world and our culture as a whole to not censor ourselves. Artists, if they're controversial, let it be. They should be. And Andy Warhol, who some say was not even an artist, others say was a genius, has a really good quote. And he says, don't worry about if your art is good or bad. Just make art. And while people are debating whether your art is good or bad, just keep making art.
You're too busy making art.
Yeah, you just make the art. You let people have the discussion. You don't have to worry about it. But honestly, the simplest answer I can give for about how to write is just to do it. You know, people are like, how did you write all these books? And it's like, well, I wrote them. That's how I wrote it. You know, it's like, well, you know, that's really it. Because everyone's got this idea of this book they want to write one day, right? But one day doesn't come. Your life is what happens while you're thinking about the one day.
Yeah.
You know, this every day is the day. There is no one day. It's always the day.
Right.
You know?
For now. And
right.
And so for you, it's the second one. So do you find that if you don't write, that I guess the inspiration or the urge to come dwindle, or does it dissipate the longer you don't write?
I truly believe, well, yeah, I really believe that we are all vessels of a higher power. And I'm not going to get into preaching about God, because we all know religion and politics, right? Those are the two taboos, right? Which I actually talk about both of them quite often in my books. I mean, I have the Holy Trilogy is one of my trilogies, right? Talks about the history of organized religion in poetic form, of course. But you know, we as vessels don't necessarily have that much control over when and when we're not creating. So I truly believe that one day I'll probably put down my pen and never write again, or write a few poems a year, right? Because I didn't write anything for almost 2 decades. I never thought about being a poet.
Right.
And then one day I get this vision from God, and the next thing you know, I've got, 5 best-selling books in a row. So you can't tell me that that's all me. I can't claim the credit for that. I can't say, oh yeah, that's, right? Because it's not all me. So I can't really answer your question fully, because I truly believe that it's not really up to me.
Cool.
So I'll keep writing if I feel possessed to, and I won't if I don't.
If you feel to. Is there you mentioned earlier that you get that question often, that you get a lot of questions directed your way, and that's one of them. Is there any question that you'd love to get asked that you don't get asked very often, or people aren't asking that you wish you would get asked? And so what is it?
I have no questions that I want to ask.
Are there questions you want to answer, or is there questions that you're asking for yourself, or like you go to this Tantra school, or you visit the Dalai Lama? Are there any questions that you like to ask others?
Well, I think a question that I think that we should all ask each other and ourselves is, well, what are we doing? Like, what is our legacy? Like, how are we helping in this world? Like, beyond us being, beyond overanalyzing and realizing that we're all a little bit hypocritical, because we're all humans. So we all ride on airplanes and wear clothing and things like that. But like, really, like, what are we doing? Like, one day you're going to die. Okay. I mean, that's not debatable.
As a fact.
Yeah. You're going to, you, as you know yourself, are going to die. You're going to leave your body. Your soul or not is going to go somewhere, or it's not. But this you, Zulu, with your body and your smile and your hair and your mustache, your whole existence there, just like me, I'm going too. We're all got to go. It's the one inevitable. So when we're all going to have that moment of truth. Now, some of us have it sooner, some of us have it later, some of us have it multiple times. I had one when I was really close. I was moments away from death, when I had the vision from God and I started writing these books. I was blessed to have that. And often, a lot of people that do big bodies of work artistically will have near-death experiences, and that will trigger that. So whether we have that during life or we have that on our deathbed, we all need to sort of we all should look at life like we're all going to die, because we are. And when you look back and you have that moment of truth, what do you want to say you've left behind? What is your legacy? What have you done? Mm-hmm. And for me, that's the biggest thing. That's the question. That's the question. And not so much I want someone to ask me, but that I feel like we should be asking ourselves is, what are we doing? What are we doing to make this world a better place as our legacy? What are we doing? And so, on a personal level, for me, it's these books. It's leaving a literary sort of documented history. It's modern scripture. This is our civilization. These poems are what life is for us right now in this world.
Mm.
And it embodies a bit of personal aspect as well, because it needs to have sort of a personal touch and sort of a first person perspective in order for people to relate to it. But at the same time, it's about our collective humanity. Anything I've written can be looked at as an individual perspective or as a collective thought.
Mm.
So that's basically the one question. And again, it's not something so much that I wish someone to ask me, but something I wish we would ask ourselves more often. What are we doing for this world we live, and what will be the legacy that we'll leave for the next generations? Because that's really what's important, and it really helps make all of the struggle and all of the pain and all of the depression and all of the debate a little more worth it,
Mm.
And when I get messages, which, one of the common messages I get is, Aaron, I just want to thank you for inspiring me. Now, I don't necessarily care what I specifically inspired them for, but just the fact that I was able to inspire them, it makes me feel good.
100%.
Because, right, it's sparking something that they already had or they feel inside of them, and it's allowing them to, and it's allowing them to really sort of tap into that universal consciousness and spark that fire within themselves and create whatever they need to create. Because if you really think about it, especially with art, it's the one thing that's kept us human, that's kept our humanity real. Like, machines are not painting our paintings. They're not writing our books. Any machine can build a car. And this, I'm not putting down mechanics. Okay. Mechanics are great. Right. But you know what I mean? Any machine can build a car or put gas in a car or, fly an airplane, for example, play chess, right? The analytical mind. But machines cannot paint, an abstract painting of a feeling or write a poem about the state that we feel of the world that we're in, And so this is sort of the last bastion of a humanity that's being dehumanized. And to me, that's really an incredible thing. So when I hear I've inspired people in the artistic world, I don't care whether they're painters or they're writers or they're musicians, but if I'm inspiring them, that's awesome.
It's awesome. You've done your bit. I feel exactly the same way. If anything, I've done it, inspired everybody to take some sort of action that helps them feel like they're growing, expanding, and being more of themselves, or knowing more of the world. Then it's a great feeling. It's like, yes, I'm doing my bit. I'm doing my purpose. I'm doing my purpose.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, just doing this show that you're doing is good because it's connecting people all over the world and it's inspiring people. I mean, look at and it can happen to anybody. I mean, I used to have nothing,
Mm.
I used to not think I was special. I used to have nothing, no money, no books, no changes of clothes, no family, no place to go, nothing to do.
How things have changed.
Right. So, it is, there is an inspiration within inside of all of us. And I think that it's a divine dance, to be able to cultivate that inspiration as well as be open to the world and sort of the universal energy that exists in it, and, I'm not going to get too esoteric about it. I mean, but science can back up that stuff also,
100%.
And I think mostly anything that I have to say, I mean, really, it's said in the books.
Yeah.
I'm not, you know, at this point in my life, I really, I'm not vocal about things that much, you know. Most conversations are
already on paper.
yeah, I mean, and that's true. That's true. Like, you know, R.M. Drake, my last book, the book that just came out that I was saying, the 777, it's a 77 alphas and alphas and omegas, because it's sort of words and numbers. So, or alphas and numerics, excuse me, alphas and omegas, like omegas and numerics together. No, but alphas and numerics. You know, and you know, like, you know, this book was number one along with a poet called Atticus. I mean, Atticus has got a, you know, 500,000 followers on social media or something. You know, massive. He's massive. Not as big as R.M. Drake, but massive. And you know, he just messaged me yesterday to congratulate me on the new book.
Amazing.
And you know, and it's just like, he's just like, hey bro, cool man, good job on the book, you're awesome, blah, 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 blah. It's a normal dude, right? I mean, same with me. People meet me all the time, and one of the most common things they say is, oh, I thought you'd be different in person. Or
what do they expect?
I don't know. You know, I guess they expect me just to speak in poetic prose and and just like just strictly stanzas, like but you know, again it's a testament to, you know, we're not the only ones that are a part of this. You know, like when I write this book, it's only a part of me. I'm only the mechanics of the book. I'm only the person, you know,
do it.
typing on. Yes, I'm only the one writing it on the paper or typing it on the computer. But really, the messages in here, I don't even understand them all. I don't even know that's everything's going on. You know, I'll read a piece in here, and I'll get one idea from it, and I'll get, you know, like surface level. And then I'll read it again, and I'll see, wait a second, there's like other information laid in here.
There's depth.
Yeah. So I think that, you know, I think that it's pretty incredible when people create things that are beyond them, you know, and you know, there shouldn't be any preconceived idea of who someone is or what they are. And I don't think artists should be judged by, I don't think their art should be judged by who they are, but what their art is, you know. I mean,
for you, do you do social media?
not really. I know I'm probably supposed to shout out my Twitter handle right now, but I literally haven't used Twitter in a long time. You know, I just got off the phone with a big publishing company yesterday, and we were talking about a publicist. And I mean, you know, yeah, like someone, you know, like Atticus or R.M. Drake or these guys, you know, they're heavy on social media and they get millions of followers and all that stuff. And I know I could do that, but the fact is every moment that I'm freaking trying to do something like that is a moment that's taking me away from experience in my life.
Right.
You know, so, you know, I have a Facebook. My Facebook is private. I don't accept friend requests from people I don't know. I mean, I have hundreds of friend requests, you know. I have, like, just checked today, I have like 93 new friend requests. Yeah. Not even, I swear to God, 93 new requests today, like on my Facebook today. You know, and you know, so no, I don't engage in social media really. I have my Facebook for my friends all over the world, so I can stay connected with the people that I love, that really love me.
Yeah.
And I think about doing something with social media. I should be able to shout out a social media thing right here, but I don't have it, man.
How do people get in contact with you? Is your contact details on the books? They send you an email, they write you a letter?
None of that's in the book.
They just meet you randomly.
Yeah. There is no contact information. No, I mean, you know, people, I guess that's probably why I get so many Facebook requests, because they Google the name. And, you know, the interesting thing is now, though, and this is both good and bad, is there's like dozens of Aaron LaLuxes.
Okay, cool. So you can be a bit more conspicuous.
But when I first started putting out, there was none. I was the only Aaron LaLux. And actually, the reason that I chose the name not because I was the only one, but that's the reason I kept the name. Was I chose Lux because it's the Latin word for light. You know, LUX is is in Latin, it means light. So LA is where I'm from, Los Angeles. I'm from Hollywood, which is the county of Los Angeles. And it also means the, so it's like Aaron the light. I mean, it's open to interpretation. But point being, when I first published my first book, I double checked to make sure there's no other authors by that name. And there's no other authors by that name. There's nobody on Facebook with that name. The name didn't exist. And now it's there's a lot. So, people that do find the real Aaron LeLux online do try to friend request me, but unless I met them in real life, I don't know.
So that's how RM Drake and Atticus and such get in contact with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I got it. Well, I mean, yeah, that's different though, because they're also poets, and so we have a special connection from that. Drake, I messaged a few years ago and was like, "Hey Drake, like your book and my book are like number 1 and 2. Like we should probably be friends." So we're friends. He actually likes all my posts and stuff.
Do you read much poetry, fiction, nonfiction? Do you do much reading?
No, I try not to do any reading. I mean, like I said, I don't do interviews. I don't do book tours. I've been asked to do book tours. If I would do book tours, no readings, no publicists. Like I'm still sort of like from the school of, look at, like, if people find my books and they want to read them, that's cool.
Awesome.
If they don't, that's their problem. That's their loss. No, but for real, this sounds like I have a huge ego, but I really don't have a huge ego. But I really think that, like, people that are questioning their life and their existence and that go through emotional stuff, or people, especially people with depression, or people that feel like they're different, or people that are struggling with whatever, or even people that are having an amazing time or a good life, or care about the written word, or like still read, or any kind of person actually with any kind of thought process that's
with like a brain
any sort of philosophical questioning. I think that like these books are some of the best pieces of literature currently existing. I mean, they're incredible. They're these worlds of existence, and they're so entertaining. And for me, I still get a kick out of them. I can pick up this book, especially the new one, because I haven't really explored it, and like my poetry, when I write it, I don't remember writing it. It's just just comes to me. I just write it down, so, a lot of times when I read it, it's new to me, and it's I still pick them up and just will read through pieces and still just get entertained by it. I mean, they're really just little literary gems, there's really good messages in here. And what I really like about it too is, I get a lot of people who say, "Hey, I just want to let you know that I never thought I liked poetry until I read your stuff." I kind of want to say, well, according to the professors, I'm not a poet, so maybe that's the way you like it.
I get that. I get that a lot with the hip hop thing. Like I get that a lot. Maybe 7 or 8 people out of 10. I don't really like hip hop. I don't really like rap.
But I like what you do.
Yeah.
Right. And so what that means is anytime someone is creating something great in any genre, anytime they're defying those pre-existing drawn box lines that they're supposed to be pigeonholed in as part of that genre, anytime they're defying those lines, people say they don't recognize it. They're not familiar with it. And all of the greats are like this. You can be good. You can be good, and people will say, "Oh, that's really good hip hop." You can be a good writer, and people, "Oh, that's good poetry." But that you're getting great when people say, "Oh, I didn't even know that was hip hop. I didn't even know that was poetry." Like, what? That's amazing, right? That's when you're going from black belt to really starting your journey. You see what I'm
That's
saying?
the thousands and thousands of hours too.
10,000 hours. They
The
say 10,000.
Yeah, but like you look at someone like a Lionel Messi or Ronaldo or Michael Jordan or Seinfeld or yourself, like in terms of hours, and I think it's 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 type of numbers,
That's the degrees of the black belt.
Yeah, cool,
Yeah,
man.
it takes like 10 years to get your black belt or something like that, and then 10 years for every degree in your black belt. So like it's the levels of the levels. Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting. It's like, I travel all over the world all the time. I've met everyone from, ministers to presidents to rock stars. I mean, I've met the biggest names in hip hop, met, all the rappers and all the, a lot of actors and, just every type of person all over the world, from LA to Australia to Europe to Africa. And I take a little bit from everybody and everything and just sort of am able to translate it and put it down into the written word and put it in these books. So they're like these microcosms of information, and I think that it's interesting, and it intrigues me too. It's like I don't know exactly what to think of them. I just know that they're going to be a lot longer, that my work has definitely become bigger than me. There's definitely way more people that know about these books than know who the heck I am.
So for the 777, what are some of the things you touched on in there?
So these are all pieces. People are often asking me they want to say, oh, do you have any new work? Like, I want to hear your new work. So these are all pieces that were written in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And most of them begin with numbers. So now the big reason I put out the book was not so much that the book is based on number 777, but out of respect for the number 777, and because it was 7717. So there's so much. The number 7 it's in every religion. It's 7 day. I mean, I don't want
the 7 chakras.
7 chakras, 7 days of the week. The number 7 is mentioned in the Bible 700 times. like, yeah, what is this? Some of this stuff. The 7 chakras, the 7 chakras, the 7 patriarchs and matriarchs, the 7 laws of Noah, the 7 planets. The planet. What's that?
The 7 dwarves.
The 7 doors, the 7 planets of alchemy. In the Quran, there's 7 heavens, 7 hells, and 7 earths. Buddhism has the 7 stages of enlightenment. Buddha was said to walk 7 times. It's it's ridiculous. So, and the flag that's on the cover and it's on the back is the 7-pointed star, which is on the flag. Australia actually has the 7-pointed star.
This is true.
This is true. So there you go. You got a little. You guys got it over there. And so that's in geometry. That's represented as the heptagram, and the 7-pointed star is the heptagon. So that's that. So that's the 7, and I'm just really fascinated with it. So there's the first few poems are all numbers, and then it gets into the first few poems are all numerics, and then it gets into alphas. There's the 7 hermetic principles, which I don't know if you heard of, the Kabbalion esoteric book. Yeah. And this is something important that this is so that people know that this is. I don't know if you can read that's backwards on your side.
The content, reader discretion advised.
Reader discretion advised. I have to put that in my books because some of the stuff's a little bit edgy,
a little bit explicit.
Explicit. Yeah, it's not so bad, but I think it's so weird that so much, like, there's all this ultra violence portrayed in mainstream media and on the TV and like
on the 5 o'clock news, and on things like Transformers and things that children designed for children.
Yeah, and I say if I say a cuss word in my book, I have to put warning explicit. One cuss word, or if I talk about sex, or I mention anything really. I have to put it, warning, explicit content. But actually, my explicit content warning is not because of cuss words, but because there are certain ideas that invoked in here are very controversial.
Give us an example.
I don't know. I can't think of one right now. I didn't prepare. I didn't prepare a reading.
So,
But
so good.
I mean,
So how can we get it?
well, just Google. If you just Google my name, sure. If you Google Aaron 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 Lux, or yeah, I mean, if you Google Aaron La Lux, I mean, the books will come up. And if you Google Aaron La Lux 777,
Google.
it'll come up. You just Google the poetry trilogy. You go any combination of those words, Aaron and poetry, or Aaron Lux 777, or poetry trilogy, or.
And do we get the book themselves? Do you do audiobooks? Do you do Kindle versions?
I don't do audiobooks, but if you want to do an audiobook of my books, feel free. You can do the audiobook if that's something. You got a good voice for it. I could see you
Yeah.
I could see you be like, yeah.
7, 7, 7.
777.
9. Numeric.
Damn. Yeah. It's by Aaron LaLux. Audiobook by Zulu. No, like I just opened this page. This is like a 5-second thing. I've awakened in some sort of dream awakening, and I'm trying not to let them get to me, but it seems they get to everyone eventually. Preyed on by hungry demons, falling angels that haven't found peace, from the hills in the city of Los Angeles to the beaches on Long Island in the east. And this indigestion from lost intentions is getting intense, and that's why we throw up gang signs from inside the belly of the beast. A feast, I offer up my body for death, like they do on Himalayan mountain peaks when they offer eagles the bodies of the dead. See, only through the death of the physical can the soul truly ascend.
Boom. I definitely have to come over there and record that audio.
Dude, I'm down.
Got that Aaron the Lux slave on it.
I got you.
Get you in the studio.
But yeah, I mean,
might be there
dream.
for a while if we start reading the first trilogy.
It's cool, bro. I've only got, let's see, what's the math on that? I've only got about 35. I've only got about like 4,000 pages of poetry published right now. That's fine.
We'll get it done.
It'll only take you like 200 plus hours if you read nonstop. 40 pages a day. It'll only take you 100 days.
Yeah, 3 months. It'll be good.
It's a long audiobooks.
It's like good luck living that life.
So I mean, it's ridiculous, man. It's so much writing. It's like literally, like if you read a page of my poetry a day, it would take you 8 years. That's just to read. If I stop publishing right now,
Yeah.
It's really ridiculous. But
so there's no goal with it. There's no, I want to do 10,000 pages and I'm done.
It's like I said, it's the thing like the black belt. It's like when you get that black belt, it's when you realize how much work there is to be done. And you know what? I'm gonna write until basically the power to write has left my body, and that could happen tomorrow. That could happen next year. That could happen next decade. I mean, I've got another, I think 500 pieces already written. They're just waiting publication. And I think I'm actually going to have to sign a publishing deal, which I've been not wanting to do. I've been putting off for a few years, but I'm a traveler. I've been to every continent in the world, and I want my book to be in airport libraries. And the airports won't put them in the library unless I have a distribution deal with the corporations, man. I don't want to sign the deal, but they in order to be in, if I want to be in the
regulations that you would include on your contract.
Well, they really want to sign with me because I don't want any money. But I'd want them to pledge a certain percentage of the profits to charities. And I'd want to be able to designate the charity, and I want to have something in my will that states that the executor of my trust, so whoever is responsible for my living will and trust, gets to decide which charity annually. So every year gets to decide which charity, which charities the money goes to. But other than that, I don't really care. I just want to make sure that, yeah, man. I mean, come on, man. This world needs so much help. The people in it need so much help. The planet needs so much help. It's freaking ridiculous. Like, we have such good lives. Like, we can all give more. I have a piece called Karma, and I don't even know what book it's in. It's called Karma. I wrote it in Varanasi in northern India, where they go to burn the bodies of the dead on the Ganga River.
Yeah.
I wrote this piece called Karma, and there's this line there that says, we can always give more.
It's true.
We can always give more. And it talks about like a beggar asking me for money and me being so grateful for that beggar and me being so grateful for having something to give to them, and, when I pass, I don't have children. I'm not having children. When I pass away, I want everything to go to charity, and I want all of my books and any money that's generated from them. I need at least some of that to go to charity. It's fucking ridiculous. Like, seriously. People, and I'm trying to set a trend with it. I'm trying to say, hey, listen, like, well, yeah, that's cool. Like, that's cool. Like, oh, you got a book out? How much of that money did you give to charity? Oh, you've got an album? Oh, you sold 10 million albums? Oh, that's cool. How much of that money did you give to charity? Like, how much of that did you give back? Because it's not, to me, it's not about how much money you make that makes you rich. It's about how much money you give away. That's a sign of true wealth. If someone I know a lot of really rich people, seriously. Now, to me, like, someone with $10 million, $100 million, $500 million, that's cool, but it's not impressive. What I want to know is how much of that money do they give to charity? How much of that work is philanthropic work? How much money are they giving away to charity? And to me, that's impressive. That's wealth. That's bling.
That's that real bling.
That's that real bling. Oh shit, you donated 10 million to charity. Jay-Z just gave like $1 million to some charity like a few weeks ago. I actually talked about my new book. That's someone who's really misunderstood. Actually, I won't get into the details of him, but
well, it's interesting. You released the 555.
Oh yeah, so he just came out with this album 444.
Right. And then
my idea was for 777 was, I think it came out for, I think 777 actually came out first. Yeah, Jay is an interesting character. I really like him a lot. We have a lot of similarities. I shout him out actually in the first poem in 777. And I didn't even know he was putting out the album. He didn't even tell me he was putting, I was like, come on, man. He wasn't really planning. That's the thing though. He put out that album like I put out my book. Like, he hadn't planned on it. It was kind of like, he wasn't like 2 years ago. He was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna put out this album. Yeah.
Like, yo, I got this work here. It needs to come out.
Yeah, but he messed up a little bit because he should have put it out on 4/4.
Right.
Yeah, but he didn't. He put out like whatever. He put it out basically the same day my book came out. I'm like, okay, it's 7717 and your album's called 444. Sorry, buddy. Got 777. That's the correct numerology. You almost got it.
You're doing it wrong, Jay.
Yeah, it's funny. I had a meeting with 50 Cent because I got a lot of rappers that asked me to ghostwrite for them, and I never do. But I was like met with 50, and I was asked about a ghostwrite for him. I said nah, and the lady that introduced us was like, "Well, who would you ghostwrite for?" And I was like, I don't think I would ghostwrite for anybody. She's like, well, who would you like let put you on? Like, who would you? And I was like, probably only Jay-Z. That's probably it. That's the only. Because he's an enigma. He's also someone that can play. He can play the villain and the hero. And it's the same thing in my books. Some people read them and say, wow, this guy Aaron, he's amazing. He's a saint, he's such an amazing, like, he's such a good guy.
And
And then
the listeners are wondering why I'm laughing. So
no, because yeah, and other people read the books and say, "Oh, Aaron is just a horrible human being. Like, God, what a terrible person." And what people don't realize is like what I write about. It's an idea, and like these things exist in all of us.
yeah.
I'm just the martyr. I'm just the person that's out there saying, "Hey, this stuff exists."
Mm.
And I think that's the same thing with someone like Jay-Z, where, you know, sometimes people are like, "Oh, this guy's amazing." Like, yeah, he's awesome. And then other times like, "Oh, well, what the heck?" Like this guy sucks. Like this guy's a terrible human being. So, it's the same sort of idea, that we embody these dualities within us. We have good and bad, and my writing isn't so much about me, even though I write it in the first person.
Mm.
But like I said at the beginning, I write in the first person so we can have that personal relationship. But it's about society as a whole. It's about the world we live in, and it's about you as an individual and things you go through and that we all go through. And if anything, I just hope people thinking, like, all right, cool. Like, gets people thinking. It helps them realize that they're not alone. We're all sort of in this giant experiment together, like blasting through time and space. You know.
Right. Are there any kind of rituals or, I don't know, habits,
Uh,
any kind of
Rituals. I'm not allowed to discuss discuss my rituals.
any kind of habits, any kind of just things that put you in flow? I know we like to talk about getting into flow and making the most out of life and getting the kind of the peak performance out of ourselves. Are there any things you do specifically for yourself, whether it's diet,
Definitely.
whether it's
No, no,
mental?
no. I'd say that the number one inspiration in my work is life.
Mm,
Is like living life,
like waking
basically.
up.
Yeah, just like existing.
Yeah.
Like, you know, um,
And what does that entail?
I
What's the definition of that for you? What does that look like?
I guess the same thing as it does for everybody else, is that maybe a little more amplified.
Just the volume
Yeah.
notches are turned up a little bit.
Like I still eat food, but I might just eat like kind of different food, or
What kind
I
of food are
still
we talking?
uh
Are there no-nos? Do you eat sugar? Do you eat caffeine? Do you eat?
I generally try to live by the philosophy of take care of your body and your body will take care of you. So um I do drink caffeine, but mostly uh in the form of like green tea, matcha green tea and things like that. No refined sugars. But honestly, I don't have any rules, man. I have
Pretty
like I have
flexible.
like I have zero rules, like just in general in my life. I I don't like no rules. Like for example, right now I'm straight edge, not drinking any alcohol, not doing any drugs, not smoking any cigarettes, not drinking any coffee. But I could go out tomorrow and have a shot of vodka. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I haven't had a single drink for months or any smoke or anything. So I think it's the same thing. This diet is like, yeah, I don't like, I don't eat pork. I don't eat a lot of meat in general, but shit, I'll eat a steak if like if the time is supposed to. If I'm in a setting, if I go to a dinner and someone's like, oh yeah, it's like, all right. I travel too much, man. I mean, have you been to Madagascar? There's like, you eat what's around, or even like, where was I? Like northern Kenya. It's like only, it's like they have like ugali, which is like, I don't know if you know what ugali is, but it's like this ugali is
Sounds
like this.
delicious.
You like ugali?
Sounds delicious. Is the word.
No, it's not delicious. It's like a white paste, corn
It's not,
paste.
it's not delicious at all.
But it's just like all they had up there was like a white corn paste, ugali, and goat meat. It's like, so in a situation like that, you eat the goat.
You're gonna eat.
You're just eating,
Eat or starve.
so
You got it when you got the two options.
eat or be eaten. I mean, so I don't have any rules, man. I don't have any diet rules. I don't have any life rules. I don't have any advice.
That's a cool rule in itself to have no rule.
That's not a rule either. I got a few. If I want rules, my only rule is no rules. there's a line in one of my pieces. The only definites is there is no definites. But I mean, yeah, basically. I really like that background though, which is on a whole other subject. That green is popping back there.
It was real.
Wait, isn't there another show where there's ferns and there's interviews?
and purple.
No, there is it's called Between
on
Two
the couch. Oh yeah, on the I know the one. It's the funny guy. What's his name?
The funny guy. Zulu, the funny guy with the ferns.
Seth
Zach. Yeah.
He made a really good movie, actually. He was in the movie.
Zach Galifianakis.
Yeah, that's the one.
Zach Galifianakis.
Galifianakis.
It's good. Galifianacular.
He's a dude. That's the one. It's not Seth. It's Zach. That's right.
Yeah. Zach. Fucking Zach. Zach, whatever.
We call him Zach G.
Zach G's up. Zach, yeah, no, but yeah, that's cool. So, do you have any other questions, or I
just wanted to thank you so much for your time, and I know you don't do these interviews, so.
No, I actually just got asked to do one in Sweden last week, and I was like, come on. No, but we've known each other for a while.
Yeah,
I knew you were. I knew you weren't gonna ask me anything too weird.
No, nothing too stupid.
Yeah,
nothing too out of the ordinary.
Yeah, the poet Atticus, the guy that just messaged me today, the poet, he wears a mask. He doesn't even. No,
like MF Doom.
He doesn't even want. He doesn't even want people to say anything to him. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
I'm kind of I get it. I understand what he's saying. Sometimes the last thing you want is to be bothered when you don't want to be bothered.
Yeah.
And poets in general are usually in a pretty not dark place. When I say dark, I don't mean bad. Dark isn't bad. It's just dark is just concentrated. It's dense. There's a lot going on, And a lot of times we just don't want to be bothered. And I think that's probably why he wears the mask,
Oh, good. Is there any last thoughts, last questions you want to leave our listeners with?
No, I guess just get a hold of me. I mean, you can message me if you see this interview and you message me yeah, I saw you on Zulu's show. Let me know. I'll probably friend you, but you got to say that or I'm not going to know. It's probably going to be a few weeks or a few months before I get around to it. But yeah, and then, feel free to get a hold of me that way. I don't use Twitter, so can't really tell you to get a hold of me that way. But find me on Facebook. Actually, the real Aaron LeLux. This is important because there's a lot of fake Aaron LeLuxes now. I mean, there's dozens now. I don't know who these guys are. But, and I actually complained. Actually, Facebook last year, because of this sort of issue, came out and said you have to prove who you are or you can't have that name.
Mm.
And a bunch of people still got away with it. I don't know how they did that, but it worked for a minute. For a minute, it was I was the only Aaron LeLux again. I was all right. And then within a month, it was boo 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 boo. So the real Aaron LeLux, not the invitation one, is in front of the Louvre. You know the Louvre?
Yeah. I know the one.
Yeah. So it's the double triangle. So there's triangle.
The underground triangle,
Louvre,
right?
And on the ground triangle, double triangle. And so if you see the double triangles, that's me. That's also my first couple books all had a big triangle theme. And the idea was anytime anyone sees a triangle, they think of me. And it worked. I see people Aaron, I see these triangles and I just think of you. Well, so
it's the, what do they call it? The lambda.
The what?
It's the triangle, the A shape.
What is the triangle?
The Greek letter.
Oh, yeah, it's delta.
That's the one.
The Greek letter is delta, yeah, but it has a lot of meanings. I mean, I have a lot of triangles on my body. I talk about it in the books. I got them all over my couple here. I got them here. And then, so my idea for the new book is that anytime someone sees the number 7,
Ping.
They're like, 7. Where did I see 7 before? Oh, shoot, Aaron's got that books. But yeah, but as of now, it's just the triangle. So if you go on Facebook and you see the triangles, that's me. But if you just friend request me and I don't accept your request, don't be offended. But if you say, "Hey, a Zulu show," and you're a real human being, and you're not like hella weird. Well, you can be hella weird. That's cool too. But like, yeah, not like, yeah, I don't want to get any spam. Don't post any propaganda on my wall.
No, I won't shout you out.
I don't think anyone's allowed to post on my wall, anyways. I think the settings are pretty high. But and yeah, check out the books and like. I try to give them out. I want, they're free. If you get a hold of me, I'll send you a copy. I'll send you a copy for free. I'll send you like the PDF file. I don't make money off these books. I've sold thousands and thousands and thousands, and all the money's gone to charity. I just donated $3,000 to the last charity from the last book. So if you want a book and you want to, pay however much it is on Kindle, or you don't want to buy the physical book off Amazon, just get a hold of me. I'll send you the PDF file for free. It's all good. It's all one love. So, I'm here, you're here, we're all here existing this experience. So I'm not trying to capitalize off you. I don't need your money at all.
Don't send me money.
You can, but it's going to go to charity.
Yeah.
So that's basically it. If you want the book, let me know. You have it free. Get a hold of me.
What is the charity you've chosen for this one?
I haven't decided. I'm looking at a few. So I have different friends that work with different charities. And I decide I'm thinking about doing this one. It's called Taking It to the Streets.
Cool.
It's helps out homeless people, mostly kids in the area. So, probably that. I try to balance between environmental charities and non-environmental charities. I might do the national, yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
You let us know.
We'll see. What's that?
I said, you let us know. You let us know.
Yeah. But I'm still deciding. So if you have an idea for a charity that you want me to donate the money for this book to, send me a link to it. I'll check it out. There's a couple of websites I use to make sure the charities are legit. And if they're legit, I'll donate some money to them.
Awesome. Thank you so much, brother.
Yeah, thank you.
See you.
Yeah.
I'll see you at the eclipse.
I'll see you at the total eclipse. Get there a day early, man. I'm telling you, they said it's the worst traffic in Oregon history. It's going to be beautiful, man. It'll be a good reunion.
I'm going to switch up dates.
This girl actually just messaged me. She's like, "Oh, you're in Oregon. How are you going to be in Oregon for?" I said, "I'm just here for the eclipse, and then I'm gone." I was like, "Oh, that sounds super mystical." When did you see Aaron? Oh, he appeared.
No.
He appeared for the solar eclipse and then disappeared. Like,
you wear a hood. You're mysterious.
No, it's super cool, man. Eclipses are awesome.
All right, brother. Have a beautiful day, and we'll see each other soon. It's been an honor. Thank you so much.
100%. Peace and love.
Till next time, man. Rock on.
Yeah.